Hello and welcome to a practice growth tip 3. Thanks for watching this Tuesday afternoon. If you're watching this right now from your Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or any of the channels, feel free to give us a thumbs up, comment it, and share this post to a wider community. Now, this episodes we're talking about, in last 2 episodes we talked about consistency. We talk about growth mindset. So growth mindset in your dental practice. Yes, growth mindset is not a growth, but growth mindset is a continual process, and which has been shared by my good friend and author, James Anderson. If you want to rewatch that episode, feel free to drop me a quick email, and more than happy to send the private link to you. All right. So today we're talking about numbers. Yes. And numbers, as you know, in any business, including healthcare business, and obviously when we're talking about dentistry, numbers, knowing the number of your dental practice is so important in dental business. And I have no one better than my good friend Sue Rusalen, all the way from South Australia, Adelaide. So let me welcome her. Good to have you, Sue, today.
Hi, Pravin. How are you? Thank you for having me today. Right. Yes, you're right. I am a numbers nerd.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Sue, yes, you have been in the dental field for, wow, how long? 30 plus years, eh? 35, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I made a mistake here. 35 years, obviously working hand in hand as a dental hygienist, practice managers, and a consultant in practice growth and sales. And so talk to me about why knowing the numbers of the dental practice is more important than ever, Sue.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard me speak before, I am a numbers nerd. I love numbers. Before I went into dentistry, I did a year at university doing my degree in mathematical science. So statistics and data really interest me. And when I found myself in dentistry, I noticed something, that people actually didn't track their failures or their success. And the only way to be able to accurately know where you are is to measure. Now, measuring is one thing, but then trying to understand why your measurement is that particular measurement, whatever it is, understanding why you've got that number, why you don't have a better number. Is it a good enough number? Is it not good enough? Whatever it is, the next step has to be action. So the 3 actions are measure, number 1. Number 2, analyze and work out what the problem is, and then create a solution and then implement that solution. So it's not just about measuring, but it's where it starts. And the really exciting thing about measuring is the 5th step is to measure again. So as we know, Pearson said anything which is measured improves, but anything that is measured and is shared improves exponentially. So during COVID, right, everyone's been really concerned about where dental practice has been going. And what I've noticed across the board, because I have measured, is there was a real lull between May and June, and then a little bit of July, and then things started to ramp up again and get really, really crazy through July and August. Some practices in Victoria, in the South of Australia, sort of went into another dip because, we went into lockdown. But what I've noticed is practices generally across the board who've been prepared have gone absolutely crazy. There's a massive redistribution of patients at the moment. That means patients belong to a particular practice and they're moving. They're moving to practices which have remained open and are there for them and are sharing a safety plan around COVID. There's all sorts of reasons that people are moving, but people are moving. That's the biggest mass redistribution of patient numbers that I've seen.
Thank you, Sue. I think that's really good. Things feedback from Dr. Padma Gadia. Awesome, guys. That's good. Thank you, Padma. I hope this quick session has been value to all our communities there. That's great. So what you are saying, Sue, is measure, analyze, and action. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. So measure, analyze, action, and remeasure. So it's well known. Well, actually, it's not well known. It's well known for me, but it's the number 1 KPI or key performance indicator for any practice. The success or the difference between a $500,000 practice and a $1 million practice On average, a $5,000 practice will have a rebooking or retention rate of about 60%, compared with $1 million practice, which sits as a rebooking and retention rate of 90%. So these numbers have been measured over many, many years. And there's a company in the US called Dental Intel, which actually measures these particular figures. And so if the one thing that you can do in your business to actually create success for yourself is to make sure that every single person, as they leave your practice, makes their next visit. Number one.
Yep.
They may not keep it for various reasons. There's a lot of skills training around this, but just make sure they make their next visit and they learn, and your staff learn the verbiage to actually make that happen, and the patient understands the value in that happening. If you can then measure how many of your clients make their next visit as they walk out the door, whether their next visit is their hygiene visit, whether it's for next treatment, regardless of what's being done in their mouth, make sure they've got their next hygiene visit already in the book and they understand why they're coming in. And if you can do that, you're well on your way to doubling your practice turnover. That's one thing you can do.
You bet. And I see that the level of the work you are doing in day out with practice owners or practice managers, helping them to, because you have always believed with the years and years of your experience, oral health hygiene program should be always running all the time, isn't it? Pretty much. So
yeah, look, don't get me started on that, Pravin, but we're actually at the moment rolling out the very first oral wellness mastery program in Australia. I'm working with Professor Tom Larkin from Kentucky and Louisiana. Tom owned his first practice 2 years before he finished dental school, and he's been on a well-worn path towards linking the oral microflora and bacteria and pathogens in the mouth and our total health. And I think now COVID has done something really interesting. It's the first time in history that our patients have had a really comprehensive education around bacteria, pathogens, viruses, and they're starting to ask questions and understand. I mean, at the start of this thing, we didn't know how to wash our hands. And so now we've got patients who are asking much higher level questions and they're really curious about what we're doing. And the very first program has already started. I'd love to see a lot more people on board. It's about training our patients to actually see the connection between the oral microflora. We actually take a sample of the microflora, we show it to the patient. We've got some pretty U-Butte microscopes that we're introducing into our practices that are, only specifically made in certain laboratories. We're using them in the practices. We're educating our patients. When the patients see that bacteria and the microflora and the pathogens and the number of pathogens on the screen, it opens a conversation where patients finally understand that there's a connection between the muck on their teeth and returning to the dentist. There's very few patients in these type of practices that will ever cancel their appointment. They always rebook. They never ring up at the last minute and cancel because they've got a birthday party or they'd rather be down having a barbecue in the park.
That makes so much sense. Rebooking, retention is all about, focusing, and obviously, this time, the situation is different. The hygiene has always been oral health hygiene has always been a keen, and you are so passionate about that. I can see very, very quickly. Now, conscious with the time here, Sue. So those practice owners who are watching this right now, or practice manager, what is your top 3 tips to grow a dental practice even in these uncertain times, So,
well, you've given me no time to think this out through, so I have to just fly this off the top of my head. I would say number one, during COVID times, you have to have empathy for your patients. I mean, you always have to have empathy, but empathy and listen, and actually patients need to know that you care. Your COVID plan, your care plan needs to be advertised and shared with your clients, explained why you're doing. Even the messages on your answering machines need to be a caring message, not just an ordinary message that anyone, you know the difference between a boring one and a good one. So you have to show that you care. That's number one. Number 2, you need to start measuring. There's no better time to stop and take stock of your business and measure. And what you need to measure, You need to know how many active patients in your patient practice. You need to know how many of them returning, what sort of rebooking rates you've got. You need to know, am I hitting 100% target on all of my patients? Is my patient journey through my practice seamless? Do they come to me? I get them out of pain. I refer them to the hygienist, or do I do that treatment myself? Do I educate them around oral health? It's this journey and consistency, and every single step of the way you can actually measure. You can do an item code analysis, which I do every day, and actually see if you're hitting those targets. And, when I find a practice that's got 5,000 active patients, yet they've only done 2,000 scale and cleans in a year. I don't like to use the word scale and cleans, but for want of a better word, they're falling very well short on educating their patients. So that's number 2. Number 1, care. Number 2, measure. And number 3 is retention. People need a reason to return. They need to be educated to a point where they will at least return, and they have to be booked in before they leave. Trying to chase them afterwards is far, far less effective. They need to know that that time is reserved for them, why they're coming back, understanding that it's not just a scale and clean, why you're actually doing it. So they're my big 3 tips that I've seen make a massive practice, massive difference to the practice. And I've got half a dozen practices who I work with that have done this over this period, and they've more than doubled their production.
Wow. Now, certainly, Sue, thank you so much for your great insight. So I hope that's been value to you. What Sue just mentioned is care, obviously trust call, making sure that patients understand, and with online, offline, all the collaterals need to be a sort of a caring factor. That's a great point. Second thing you mentioned also about measure everything, including item code. And I see you're a great passion on the item codes, and you have transformed so many dental practices, and you are even the backstory we were just talking before is some of the success you have with just small things, tweaking small things, having great results. That's great. And you talked about retention, because as you know, so in a business, it's not always I hate to use this, we are not always on a hunting side. It's fine, new patients, but point I'm trying to say is farming is always good, adding value to your existing clients, adding value, activating those inactive patients. So all about, we're talking about rebooking and retention pretty much, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Beautiful. Thank you. So any other final points you want to share that to our viewers right now?
Oh, I was about to say something, but I have a friend with an Airbnb, and he's developed the term safe stay. You can have a safe stay in his Airbnb, and he's managed to, it's a beautiful Airbnb, he's managed to put his prices from $350 a night up to $500 a night just by making it a safe stay, and people are booking out like crazy. So in your own practice, I'm not suggesting that you triple your fees at all. I think this is a time we do have to meet the market by just educating people that they're going to have a safe visit to your practice. There's not one piece of evidence that actually shows that any transmission of COVID has actually occurred in a dental practice. It's just non-existent. We nailed this on the head when the HIV virus came out in the 80s. We've been practicing at these levels, even with the aerosols. We're doing extremely well. So, I would say make sure your patients know that they've got a safe experience in your office.
You bet. Thank you so much for the tips, Sue. Looking forward to doing future episodes with you. And that was a great value. I hope you guys find the same as well. If you liked it, feel free to give a thumbs up, comments, or any specific question, reach out to Sue. Here is the best email address, sue@talkingdental.com.au. Reach out to her. She is just amazing. Thank you so much once again. I hope that's been value to you. And this is again Praveen Gautam bringing you Practice Growth Tips 3. And we're talking about knowing the numbers of your dental practice. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next one.